Hello, everybody at the Games Gathering conference. I just want to start this thing by taking the opportunity to thank you for having me here. I'm hoping that everybody is having a great time at this conference, both now online and maybe even those who are there at Odessa live. Sadly, my scheduling this year kind of didn't enable me to be there present live. Maybe I'll have a chance to appear one day and hang out with everybody. So let's kick this off. My name is Nikola Damjanov. I'm basically a 3D generalist artist from Belgrade, Serbia. And well, basically I've been working last almost 10 years in a mobile gaming company called Nordeus, Belgrade, an awesome place to work. And before that, I've been doing a lot of versatile and various stuff. I actually started my higher education as electrical engineer, but I never finished that university for like multiple reasons. But I ended up getting a degree in digital art. But that split in my brain between technical and art has stayed with me like to this day, and has like brought me a lot of advantages in my line of work. So on my day job, I work as a lead gaming artist. Lead meaning that I lead both people. I'm a both people manager, and I'm also a lead in the sense that I decide and help decide how and how the game will look and how we will make all the content that we need. But I also spend a lot of night shifts, experimenting a lot with art and technology, and like trying to adopt as early as possible new technologies. I experiment a lot as a personal passion with procedural and generative art, even on an abstract level and also on a content production level. And it has paid off in many ways. One way is that I circled the knowledge a lot between my professional and private work. Just keeps cross-feeding. A lot of stuff that I learned in my personal experiments really helps me out on my day job, and then a lot of stuff that I discover in my day job really helped me out, like improve my personal art. So I really like that symbiosis of two sides. And then every once in a while, when I get some free time, I have great opportunities, and I get invited to collaborate on different projects. And I've been collaborating with some really nice companies like SideFX, Substance, Adobe. And today we'll be talking about one of my recent collaborations, which is actually a short movie called The Dawning, which was produced by SideFX, the makers of Houdini. They approached me to help them produce all the necessary environments for the shorts. As you will see, they're like around. The short is based on Mars, and we relied completely on Houdini heightfields to producing those environments. My first steps for heightfields were actually done for a game that I was making at the time called Heroic. And I think that probably that got the right, so I got an invite to collaborate in this project. So just to kind of make some things a bit more in context, let's like see the short movie first, and then we'll continue. I hope that you like that. I hope that you like how the environments looked, because now we're going to spend some time going through a breakdown on how we actually produced those terrains. When I was first approached about this project, what was interesting to me when I saw the initial kind of storyboards is that the idea was to showcase the Mars environments in different scales. So we had some shots who were really wide, showing the vast environmental vista of the Mars surface. Then we had some like more close-up shots that were showing specific cliffs, and even like really close-up, kind of almost on a macro level, where we actually wanted to show astronauts' feet walking on a very detailed surface of the Mars, which was very exciting, like trying to solve all of those problems, but very kind of challenging as well, because we had to kind of find a way to create all those environments at those different scales and still maintain the the fidelity level of quality across the board. Luckily, we had Houdini at our disposal, who does things that scale like really well, and it kind of lets you work things on one scale and then add details on top incrementally if you want to go closer in the camera. So what you're going to do now, I'm actually going to break down going scale by scale level from a very far away to very close-up shots on how we actually produced those environments. So we'll start by showcasing how we utilized Houdini and Mapbox features, like actual kind of scans of the Earth to real-life scans of the Earth's surface to create some faraway background elements of the Mars. Then we start kind of moving closer in, showcasing how we made some of the cliffs, showing you that you don't have to really rely only on Houdini height fields, even though they're extremely powerful, but that you can combine them with the rest of the Houdini's incredible toolbox. So I'll show you how you can separate the part of the height field and then treat it as any other 3D model. That was the technique that I used to create some specific rocky cliffs. Then I'll show you moving closer in how to create height fields on different details scales, and how to mix them together to create something even more detailed. And then in the end, we'll go to producing the actual cracked ground that you can see under the astronauts field, kind of combining a bunch of different techniques that we utilized before. And you will see that all these different scale levels, they don't differ that much in approaches and tool that you use. But every problem required a specific twist to the solution to get the required results. In the end, I'll show you how we dealt with texturing. All the texturing was done in Substance Painter using the UDIMs. So depending on how close the environment was to the camera, we use between 3 and even 9-10 UDIM sets for a specific part of the terrain. What was cool with why I decided kind of to use the Substance tools is because first of all, I could utilize Substance Painter UDIM support, and second thing is that I could really base my texturing on Substance Painter smart materials. So basically, what I did, and you will see it in the breakdown, is that once I developed the smart material and the procedural texture flow for any single part of the terrain, I could easily replicate that for anything else. So this whole procedural approach, both in creating environments in Houdini and texturing it later in Painter, was I think paramount for this project, because the project was very live and iterative until the last day. We were constantly changing things, trying to find the best possible look and camera angles and style as well. So having things being procedural really kind of enabled us to at any point go back at any production point and iterate, change, and within a day have a completely new version. So let's start the breakdowns.
Let's take a look at the processes we use for making terrains for the dawning. As you will see, they have some similarities, but they usually differ depending on how far away they are from the camera. Starting from the simple and far ones, let's see how we refurbish the scans. So, once we have a scan from the map box, we take a part of it using the tile split node so we can focus our work on it. First, we resample it down to remove any of the artifacts that we might have from the actual scan data. Then we mask out the slopes, combining a couple of mask by feature nodes to get some kind of a directional slope mask. Then we erode thermally only that part of the height field, basically getting something similar to the original height field. We continue adding details by eroding the entire height field next and mixing it together with the thermal one. Then we resample it up so we have more data to work with, and then run another erode pass for additional level of details. That eroded pass is combined with the blur extended version of the original height field, so we get a version of the height field which has really sharp eroded cliffs. That sharp eroded cliff version is then combined with the blurred version of the height field, so we get some of the cliffs which have kind of chiseled edges, other ones which are way more soft, so we get some visual interest and kind of a simulation of the sand accumulating only on one side of the cliffs. Then we add details for the large ones using the height field noise and the medium ones using the height field distort nodes, and layering them together on the original height field. Before proceeding to add the high frequency details, we do another resample up in order so we have enough voxel data to work on, and then we run the last distort node on top. We calculate the flow field and use it for slumping and blurring the height field for the final look. Expanding on that workflow for the background elements which had to be based on the proxy geometry, so we start from the proxy geo, we project it and resample it on height field, then we start to manually add details, first by distorting the entire height field, then masking out the slopes so we can terrace them, as you can see here. Then we erode those terraces very roughly and layer them back into the original one. We run a process of flow fielding and slumping to kind of connect and a little bit chisel down the harsh terracing to make everything kind of mix and fit together. So you can see this is before and after slumping. Then we create a mask only for the bottom part of the height field. We modulate it with noise. And then we bring in the off-the-shelf dunes height field. We rescale them and erode them in order to get some more high frequency details. Then we mix them together with our distorted height field based on our noise mask to add visual interest to the plain ground elements of the height field that we are working on. We resample it up to get more data to work with. Then we mask out the flat areas because we want to break them out even more. We do height field pattern of cells and then to get the cracks on the surfaces and erode to get more details. Next thing is basically running same thing one more time. We mask out the slopes, we terrace them, we do a thermal erosion of them to reduce their sharpness. And then we do flow field one more time and slump it together to get a little bit more softer features. As you can see here how it looks before and after. running the flow field and slump, everything just kind of connects a bit better. We do another final erosion pass on the entire thing and then blend it together just so we can control the amount of the erosion we want in the height field. Last amount of details is kind of a small to medium sized rocks that we wanted to have on the ground. We make them by masking out the ground level of the height field, modulating that mask with some noise, and then we use height field scatter to scatter a bunch of distorted rocks. We position them a little bit below the surface, and then we project those details back into the height field so we have some even more variation. For the trains which are a bit more closer to the camera, we kind of reuse the same processes, but I added a little bit more because we had some cliffs close by. The start is basically the same. We start from projecting a height field on the proxy geo, and then like have a distortion to get those major forms. You can see some of the settings that we used. Then we mask out the slopes, we terrace them, we then run erosion on top to chisel them down and mix that erosion with the uneroded version, so we have some control. Then we run the flow field and slump to connect all the elements together. I don't think that you guys will see this workflow of eroding and slumping being in a loop and constantly repeating. Next step, as before, we wanted to break out the flat details, so we mask out the flat ones. We bring in some sand dunes so we can mix them into the flat areas, like you see over here, based on that mask. That was kind of first pass of breaking up the flat areas. Second pass is we also utilize the map box and some BirdLife scan based details that we brought in, rescaled, and kind of eroded to get the level of details that we needed. You can see this is the eroded pass. It looks quite flat, but that's exactly what we need to at least do some high frequency breakup on the flatlands. We mix them together at the same areas where we mixed the dunes as well. Moving on, we add another level of cliff details. Again, we mask out the slope, run a terrace on them, but this time with more details, and especially with more variation. Again, flow field and slump to bring everything kind of together, and as you can see here. And we blend those newly added details only on the higher parts of the height field. And you can see the difference of before and after is subtle, but it works wonders, especially with those horizontal details. Speaking of those horizontal strata details, in order to build like specific cliffs for this height field, we cut out the part of the height field, we extract it into a mesh segment, and then we use that as the base for building the cliffs for that part of the height field. So we start from that mesh, we voxelize it to get some even details, we remesh it, smooth it a little bit, and then the first level of modeling it is adding the mountain sop to get some kind of a rock looking formations. We voxelize it again, so we unify the polygon distribution. Then what we do is we take a bunch of distorted planes with various distance, and we use them to cut the strata levels in the mesh. As you will see right now, once we color them, like every level has a varied thickness, so we have some thickness variation that adds very nice visual interest. In the next step, we use the for each system to process each individual strata layer by itself. We select only the points on the edges, and we smooth out their position in order to kind of do some edge damages on the strata layers. We add some like variation to them as well, so we have more details. Then we shatter each piece using the Voronoi fracture and points that we manually distributed, and then we delete the smallest parts of those shattered elements. For some elements, we repeat this process even 2 times, just to kind of want to simulate some of the pieces of the strata layers falling off. As you can see, this is how it looks when each and every piece is processed. We get some nice rock-looking strata layers which have nice relative offset and damages between them. See the before and after situation. We take that element, we voxelize the whole thing again together, so we have one mesh. We create the dirt skirt, so we have some contacts with the ground. And then the next step, we calculate the occlusion on the entire mesh, and we use that to select the elements or the points which are in the highly occluded areas. We isolate those points and polygons, selecting a subset of them. So we get like patches of polygons here and there, and then we use those polygons to scatter points. And then those points are used to copy rocks on top of them. So we get these patches of accumulated rocks and stones all over the entire strata cliff. Then we go back to our slashed and destroyed strata layers, so we can add the final levels of medium and high frequency details. So we pick the entire thing so we can interpenetrate the polygons before voxelizing them to get a nicer looking shapes. Then we use the mountain to add several levels of additional horizontal, like medium and high frequency details to make those layers of rocks really stand out. And after doing all those levels, we do the final round of voxelization to get the final result. Moving in closer together, you will see we basically repeat very similar processes, but since this part of the height field and this part of the terrain that we have in the short is where the character walks, so it's mostly flat, so we have to do some things differently. Again, we start from the proxy geometry, which is projected on the height field, and we do the first round of distort to kind of modulate the major shapes. Again, masking out the cliffs, the slopes, and terracing them to deal with them first. We are still dealing with a very low resolution height field, just because we are dealing with with big details at first. Doing rounds of erosion and on top, one after another, adding more details on each step, and resampling up before every erosion pass, so we have enough data to work with. After every erosion, we blend it together with the previous version just so we can have the control over how much of the erosion and where we want those details to be in. Don't forget to use the flow field and the slump node to kind of connect those things together. In the end, we mask out the part where the character actually should walk, and we smooth it out so we don't have problems with feet colliding with the geometry. Then we proceed to breaking out the mostly flat elements. We do that by masking them and slowly, slightly rising them up, and then using high fill cell patterns in couple of scales to break up the surface and get some cracks on the ground. Then we erode them in order to blend them nicely with the rest of the terrain. We do one more pass on the only edges of those raid elements, just to add more details and a little bit chisel them down as well. We use like very low height terracing to do that, and thermal erosion to bring the edges a little bit down, just so the transition is not as harsh. Since some of the edges were still a bit too harsh, we ran the flow field and slump technique one more time to accumulate more debris on top. Speaking of debris, the final step of breaking up the flat areas is masking out like sections of them and using that mask to scatter a bunch of rocks on top. As you can see here, we have rocks in different scales, small ones, big ones. Then we actually even use the solver in this case, not just scattering them, to make them fit a bit more better together, since they will be seen from a closer distance. We end up merging all the scattered rocks together and projecting them back into the original height field. Getting even their like contact mask along the way that we can use to make them nicely blend. We erode the entire thing together one more time and blur expand to a little bit inflate the volumes of the rocks that they lost during the erosion, and we pretty much get something which is really close to the final look that we have for these cliffs. We use the height fields even for the most closest camera shots that we have here, even on actual astronaut walking on the surface, but we had again a slightly different and custom approach. This time we start by fracturing a simple grid object, selecting a subset of those Voronoi cells and dissolving the edges, so we have a little bit of shape variation between those cells. We even deleted some of the cells to add even more variation. So this is what we have in the end. Then we poly extrude that to inset and get some borders between each and every cell, and then we extrude each cell with variation of the angle for the top of the extrusion, so we get some slant between each and every individual cell. We select the top parts of those extruded elements, blast some variation of them. We insert them a little bit to make them smaller, and extrude one again to kind of simulate a bit of surface like crust layer on top of that cracked ground. Then we move again into the height field territory. We project all those model details into a height field on a very low resolution at first. We do some distorting to break out all the very straight lines we got from fracturing, and then we start introducing more and more details. We blend in a kind of cell-based height field to add some surface variation. Then we blur expand the entire thing to inflate the volumes and erode the height field to get some edge details on top. We mask out those edges similarly to the thing that we did in the previous section, and we run terracing on top. This is the idea to kind of simulate even more very kind of subtle ground layers piling on top. As you can see, this is what we get. We had this nice kind of leveling of the of sand or dirt piling on top. We create one more very noisy looking height fill and blend it into the holes that we had from the deleted cells. So we have some like ground and sand in between those cracked earth ground elements. Again, we use the flow fill and slump to fill in the cracks in between the elements and make everything blend a little bit together. You can see here the before and after of how this looks. We distort the surface a little bit more, and then we mask out the flat areas, mostly focusing on the pieces where we don't have those cracked segments, and then we use that mask actually to scatter a whole bunch of small rocks and pebbles in various sizes, as you can see here. Then we project those details back into the height field. We run another pass of flow and slump to blend them together a bit nicely. Then we move on to actually breaking up the very flat top areas. We do that by introducing one more height fill with a cell pattern on top, and then we like slightly subtract those cells from the top areas, simulating like small cracks on the surface. We do a little bit of fixes on the edges as well, just so they're a little bit more smoother with nicer details. Once we have this entire system built up, we bring it back to the original cliff side that the astronaut is supposed to walk on, so we can blend them together. So we take the old element and the new cracked ground element. We position it and scale it where we need it to be. Then we actually have to manually draw a mask where we want this to be blended. We were kind of careful not to destroy any of the pre-existing features, but to kind of intelligently blend this where it should be blended. We blur that mask, and we actually blur the height field as well, so we have a nice kind of groundwork for blending in those details. And we just kind of project the cracked ground height field into the cliff height field to get those both details combined into the final piece that we need. Regardless of the way we made the terrains, each and every one of them was prepped for export in the same way. So we take the height field that we want to export, we run the flow field on the final version, and then we export all the layers using the terrain layer node, just so we have the mass that we can use later for texturing. We convert the height field with the density of 1, so we get the high polygon details that we used for texture baking, and we export it to the Alembic. And then we use the terrain segment node for actually exporting the low poly versions of the terrain. Depending on how big the terrain is, we segmented it into like 2, 3, 4, even 9, maybe even more segments, and export each and every one of them. The final step is just to accommodate the UVs and make them work with the UDIM tile workflows. We re-import the exported tile segments, and we go piece by piece and just slightly scale down the UVs, so we make sure there are no UVs at the boundaries of every UV tile. So we make sure that the mesh will definitely work with the UV tile workflow. We bring all those elements into Substance Painter, where we textured all the terrains for the short video. We bring in the high poly, the low poly, and all the exported masks like flow, for example, that we used to make smart materials. We start by building the base colors first, as you can see here. Then we start introducing more and more color variation using like geometry or mask based smart masks along the way, so we can keep things flexible. Once we have the underneath stone defined, we, same as in modeling, we continue adding details on top. We add several layers of sand and dirt, trying to like simulate the accumulation with each and every layer, and trying to be smart with masking along the way. Here you can see the entire kind of base material of the terrain before and after. Then as final touches, we have a bunch of layers. We just added additional adjustments, like additional dirt layer on top, sharpening up the texture for better rendering, adjusting like hue, saturation, and even adding a little bit of color details to the height and normal maps as a final touch of high frequency control. And then brings us to the end of this quick rundown of the production processes for the terrain in the Dawning short. I hope this was interesting to you. See you some other time. Bye.
And we've come to the end of this presentation. If you have any further questions, I'm really kind of talkative guy, so you can find me on any of these kind of social networks that you can see here. Feel free to contact me for a chat, or for maybe a different opinion, or maybe for any help that you think that I might offer you. So again, thanks for having me, and hopefully I'll see you as well next year. Bye.